Welcome to the Leadercast podcast, a weekly deep dive into the stories that transformed our guests into leaders worth following. I'm your host, Joe Boyd. If you've been enjoying the podcast, thank you so much for being a listener. One simple thing you can do to help us out is to give a review on the app wherever you listen. Thanks. Welcome to the Leadercast podcast. Today's guest is a genuine certified GOAT, a greatest of all time, one of the greatest left tackles to ever play in the NFL, Anthony Muñoz. In this episode, you will learn how he grew up fatherless and how that inspired his whole life. You will learn how the words of his brother Joe from when he was 6 years old still ring in his ears, and also the one play in his whole career that he could change if he could. Let's do this. Anthony Muñoz, welcome to the Leadercast podcast, man. So glad you're here.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is awesome and totally selfish of me. I'm based here in Cincinnati with you, lifelong Bengals fan, which has had its ups and downs, but you were part of some of the ups. So thank you for that.
And I tell you what, the great thing about it, still living in Cincinnati, there's quite a few guys that I played with. So, we've gone through some good times, bad times as players, some bad times, good times as fans now, as former players. And I think we're back to going through some good times now.
It's pretty fun right now. That's for sure.
It really is. I tell you.
Sorry to interrupt you. I almost never do this because I'm not a big fan of just reading people's bios.
Right.
But for the folks that might not know you, maybe they're not big football fans or whatever. I just want to read this stuff and tell me if any of it's wrong. But you're named to the NFL's all-time team, top 100 players. Started 164 of 168 games from 1980 to 1990. That's probably the craziest thing. You caught 7 touchdown passes
Actually, I caught 7 passes for 4 touchdowns. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good percentage anyway, for a tackle, right? 11 consecutive Pro Bowls, 11 consecutive All-Pro teams, only missed 3 games to injury. Man, you are the best or one of the best at your position of all time. And it's an honor to have you here. I wonder, I'm sure you know that stuff and you've lived with it your whole life, but at your current age and where you are, when people start to spout off your stats, what do you think of? What's the first thing that goes through your head when you start hearing that stuff?
Well, it's, gratefulness, thankfulness, and it's kind of still have to pinch myself, when I hear those stats or when I, when you watch video, I say, was that really me out there playing? Because I think a lot of it, from my college days, not a lot of the experts gave me a chance to go on because of injuries I suffered in college. So the fact that, I was able to play 13 years with the Bengals and only played 1 healthy season in 4 years at USC and didn't miss a game until late my 11th year with the Bengals and, played all 13 years relatively healthy other than that, the couple games I missed. It's one of those things where I am very grateful that I had a chance first of all, Joe, that the Bengals gave me an opportunity to go to an NFL camp because like I said, I suffered my 3rd knee injury my 4th year in college. So that was 3 and 4 years. And like I said, everybody had written me off. I played 1 game my senior, came back and played in the Rose Bowl. And when it was all said and done, more than half the teams had failed me with my physical. But the Bengals took a chance and drafted me. Not only drafted me, but with the 3rd pick in the entire draft. So I'm very grateful to them that they saw something there and they took a chance because I think there was I really believe there was a lot of Bengals fans when they drafted me that were scratching their head going, what is this organization doing? Drafting a guy that can't stay healthy. So, I'm thankful that I had a chance and really after playing that 1 game my senior year, missing the entire season playing the Rose Bowl, I just wanted a chance to see if I could compete on the NFL level. Bengals gave me 13 years to compete with them. So
that's awesome, man. And were you shot? Like, I assume you thought you'd get drafted, but were you thinking 3rd overall, or was that a shock to you when you got the call?
Well, again, it was interesting because before my senior year, they were projecting me as a top 5 pick. After I got hurt, they said maybe not even playing, maybe a free agent. So the fact that I played in that Rose Bowl and I did well and I stayed healthy, I didn't really know what was going to happen. I went to the combines and I was like always the last guy coming out of the medical examination. So really I had no idea. I mean, because, some guys were saying no, some guys were saying maybe. So all I was, praying for was that I would get a chance. So I was hoping that I would get a call at least one of the 2 draft days saying, hey, you've been drafted. If not, maybe a team would be interested in signing me as a free agent, which would be a tough go. So, going into the draft back then, I really had no idea. Didn't have a clue what was going to happen. But of course, that first 10 minutes of the draft happened to be an amazing time.
That's all. I mean, it's hard to think of someone that's one of the very best at their position of all time that didn't know if they were going to get drafted. Maybe Tom Brady was in there, but that's pretty rare. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the 3 knee injuries were pretty much being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, guys hitting me, falling on my knee. So, the crazy thing, and this was kind of a funny side story, 4 years in college, 1 healthy year, played all the way through my sophomore year, but 4 summer camps, in the 4 years, I didn't miss a practice. I went through every practice, summer camp. And then of course you have spring practice in college. And I went through all the spring practices. So my buddies would say, hey, if you're going to get hurt in camp. That's the toughest part of the season. Yeah. But, so I'm thankful that I had all that training. I mean, I was able to go through, and I had a great offensive line coach there at USC. So with all the 4 camps and 4 spring practice, sessions, but not a whole lot of game reps. So, people kind of still, hear that and can't believe it because it is really kind of unbelievable. But I'm thankful that I had that chance. And so once that Bengals drafted me, it was okay. Now I got to prove that pick was worth it. And, the work ethic and the working out just went to another level. And I worked out year round to make sure that my body was, tip top shape. And I didn't have to worry about conditioning, that I just worried about, strategy and the technique part of the game. So, you learn a lot, through adversity, and I'm thankful. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, one of the things I love to do on this podcast is just, I'm way into like good stories and what makes a good story. And I think we're all living out a story. And when we reflect on it, most of us can see the goodness in it and how it's all worked out. If I could take you kind of back to your childhood, like I'm really interested in your early ambitions. And I know I've read a little that you had a kind of a rough childhood with your dad not being around and stuff. But when you were a little kid, what were you dreaming of? Was it football or was it something else?
Yeah, it wasn't really football. So, my mom did raise 5 of us by herself. I never knew my dad. My dad was in prison most of the time I was growing up. He passed away. I never met him. Never, I heard indirectly he had passed away after he got out of prison. But so mom raised 5 kids. I had 2 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. I lost a brother, lost a sister in the last couple of years. So I'm in the middle. So my childhood dream was at the age of 6 with 2 older brothers, I started playing baseball. And I saw that I'd been given a gift on the baseball diamond. And so I was going to be a pro baseball player from the age of 6, even through high school. I had a dream of playing in the major leagues. And, that dream, once I got to high school, got closer. I was a 3-year starter at third base on the varsity team, 3-time All-State, even though football was, still kind of there. And I tell people I was All-State 3 years in baseball and 2 in football. But the recruitment started to come in football, to go to school and play football across the country, just about anywhere I wanted to, but still with my eyes focused on, if I go to college and play football, get my school paid, will they let me play baseball too? And right. So that was my dream, to continue to play. But yeah, so it wasn't to be an NFL football star. It was to play in the major leagues, either to play third base or to pitch in the major leagues. So that was my focus growing up as a kid.
Did you play baseball at USC or just football?
I did actually. They allowed me. They said, "Hey, come play football. Come to school, and we'll let you play baseball." And it wasn't just a recruiting pitch. They had a track record of letting guys play both if they were capable. And fortunately, the one healthy year that I made it through football, I played baseball the one year. And the great thing about it, that same year we won a national championship in football, and I got to go to the World Series and win a ring on a national championship baseball team. So for baseball, it was 1 and out and got a ring.
Right.
I played for Rod Dado, who was an amazing college coach. I think he had 11 or 12 national championships as a coach there at USC. So I did. They stuck to their promises and said, "Hey, come here and you'll get to play football and baseball." And I got to do that for at least 1 year.
Love it. And you famously have a permanently dislocated pinky, I know, right? So if you'd played baseball, you'd probably still have that healthy pinky, you know.
You know what? It would be in the glove all the time, and it wouldn't be trying to stop 250, 280-pound defensive end, and it would be straight instead of going downwards. So it might still be straight if I just stuck to baseball completely.
Well, as a Cincinnati native, I'm glad you played football. Was there, when you were a kid, apart from sports, was there I like to ask this question, it doesn't always relate to everyone, but were there any adventure stories that really captivated you, like movies or comic books or cartoons or anything like that you resonated with? Any stories?
You know what? I watched all the things. I watched Superman and, all the different, superheroes. And I love that. But, for me, I enjoyed reading, but I really enjoyed reading autobiographies of athletes. I mean, it was one of those things where I was just intrigued, kind of like we're talking here about who they are as people, what they did, once they hit the professional ranks. And that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed reading about people's stories, kind of what we're talking about here, and learning about people and really learning what makes them tick, what motivates them. So, as far as heroes, I mean, I had some teachers and coaches that I looked up to, but, it was, and again, I didn't have, nowadays as a retired athlete, as one that played, we have a lot of contact with young people through my foundation, doing camps, and really never experienced that with pro athletes growing up, in my area. It was more kind of relatives. My uncle, my mom was one of 10. So it was my uncles that kind of stepped in. It was a baseball coach that I met when I was 7 years old. I have a 57-year relationship with him now, and he was my high school baseball coach, Jim Seaman.
Wow.
So it was those type of individuals that really, those were the kind of superheroes. Those are the ones that showed me what work ethic was all about. When Mom showed us work ethic and responsibility, and Coach Seaman taught us how to play a sport to the highest level, but doing it with character and integrity. Those are the type of, superheroes that I had, growing up as a kid, and got really excited about what they were all about. So, I guess that's how it kind of started for me in Ontario, California.
What's your baseball coach's name? The one you've known for 57 years?
Jim Seaman. Actually, I met him when I was 7. He had just finished his master's at USC, and he actually pitched. He was a baseball player, pitched on the 1961 national championship baseball team. So when I got to high school and met him, we had that after I graduated from college, we had that in common. I pitched on one national championship team. He pitched on another. So, when I get back, I was just out in California not long ago, and visit family, and I always go by and see Jim. He lost his wife a couple of years ago, and they'd been married 57 years, and he's struggling physically right now. But I go by and we reminisce, and he was usually coming out every summer to my foundation dinner, but he hasn't been able the last couple of years. So every time I talk to him, I said, "You got to get ready, man. You got to make it back to Cincinnati. Everybody's waiting to see you again." Because for 15 years in a row, him and his wife were coming out every summer to our dinner. And but those are Jim is and he's really impacted a lot of young men like myself that played for him. He was a gym PE teacher and a baseball coach for 30 plus years. And a lot of us that grew up that way, I mean, he taught a lot of us some valuable lessons, and not only myself, but other young men that he coached.
I love that, man. We have a lot of high school teachers and coaches that listen to this podcast and are part of Leadercast. And that's the front line of leadership. Sometimes we don't think about that when we think about leadership, maybe, but they listen to this and they need it. And I like to ask, so in business world, we use the term coach sometimes, and sometimes people hire a business coach, but you actually lived in a world where there were real, you had actual coaches. That was their job. That was and he was one of your first. But when you think about being coached up, whether it was him or anyone else, are there any voices that live in your head to this day that you can kind of, when you're going through something, any of those coaches kind of, do they kind of talk to you as you go and keep coaching you through life?
Well, here's one phrase that I heard it when I was about 6, 7 years old. You don't have to talk about your abilities. If you're good enough, people will talk about you. Just go out and get it done. And that was my older brother, Joe, when I was learning baseball. That was, little did I know, that was the beginning of learning hard work, but being humble, humility. So I think that phrase above just about all of them stand out in my mind is, you don't have to talk about how good you are. People, if you're good enough, people will talk about you. You just go out and do the job, and get it done. And so to me, I've been able to carry that in school, athletics, community work, as a husband, just get it done. I mean, if you're, that's why accolades are so uncomfortable at times, because I realize that you can't do it alone. The funny thing that I chuckle about, and I share this, you hear self-made person a lot, self-made man. So this self-made person, when they get an accolade, they go in front of a group, they're given this accolade, and they get up there to accept the accolade or the gift or whatever. And what do? They have 2 or 3 sheets of paper in front of them, thanking all the people that have helped them get to where, if they're self-made, they wouldn't have needed all these, all the support group. So to me, that's what was exciting about me, is I had, when I went back to my high school, when I was in college, or either in the pros or even afterwards, but as I get older, we start losing some of those teachers. I would go back to the science building, because there was my science teacher, Ted Reeves. In fact, I just got an email from Ted Reeves last week. I'd go back and see him, because not only did I have him, but I was a science, aide in one of his, classes. And then I would go back to home ec and see Mrs. Marilyn Thalkin, who was my home ec teacher. We lost her several years ago because of the impact. As a kid, we had to learn everything. We learned how to wash clothes, iron clothes. We learned how to cook. So I was kind of a hand up, but, when I got to high school and had to, go through cooking class, because I'd already had, all this experience growing up at home, learning how to cook.
Yeah, you were Marion material, man.
Well, I tell you what, then I married Dee Dee 44 years ago, and she's an amazing cook. So I don't have to cook now, because she's a great cook. But, it's those teachers and coaches that, like, you're right, that know they're teachers, they're going to teach you, but also get it and know they can have an impact on the students they teach. And that's what I experienced with my, a lot of my coaches and teachers.
Yeah. We talked about your injuries at USC. One of the things I love to hear is kind of the obstacles that stood in your way. Maybe that was the main one, but there might be others. And in story, like language, I like to think about them as like a dragon, like we're all on an adventure to get our treasure. And our treasure usually ends up being like family or relationship, even though we think it's going to be something else.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I use that phrase, what were the dragons that stood in your way that stopped you from getting what you wanted? What comes to mind when you think of it that way?
Well, it's interesting, because a lot of times people think, certain things, but the adversity I went through, I think the dragons a lot, and it could become this way for a lot of people, I think, are the words that are being spoken. I talked about it earlier. After my, each injury, it was like, okay, think about maybe something else to do. Then after my 3rd injury, well, you can't do this. Think about, there's no way you'll play in the NFL. So do you believe those dragons, those words, that, can just pierce through your heart when you hear that? Or is it just another obstacle that you overcome and you say, okay, people are saying this, but I know that's not the truth. I think not believing the lies of those words or those dragons. I think for me in those 4 years of college, those were my dragons. We're not believing what other people were saying and just saying, hey, if I don't make it, it's not going to be because of lack of work ethic or lack of preparation. It's going to be because people don't want to take a chance, or maybe I just don't have the ability. I've worked extremely hard. So I think for me, during my adversity, was not buying into the lies of other people and the dragons the lies that we tell ourselves. and saying, hey, I don't know if I can do this. Am I good enough to do this? Maybe I'm not good enough to do it. Instead of saying, no, I am good enough to do this. I'm going to work hard enough and not believe what they're saying. So I think as I look at it, those were probably a lot of my dragons in those 4 years at USC that I had to overcome. And sometimes they were baby dragons. Sometimes they shot some pretty big flames.
They're ready to get you. That makes me just wonder. I'm a very visual guy, so I'm like imagining all these people sort of giving you this kind of negative feedback. Yeah. There obviously also had to be people that were saying, "Don't believe that," right? Like, did you have that in your life? Did you have, or was it all like internal? You just had to find it in yourself. Did you have people tell?
It's interesting because those who know me know that my spiritual part is the main thing with my life, my faith. And to me, I entered in my faith journey as a sophomore in college. So that really helped me, God's truth helped me not believe the lies. So though I had God's truth, but then I had other teammates that were like-minded. We were in studies together. My wife, I got married my sophomore year. So she was one of those that was sitting next to me, really encouraging me. But you're right. You have those that are naysayers, but then you have those supporters that are saying, hey, you can do it. I've seen your work ethic. I've seen your ability. Just keep working hard. And sometimes I'm sure they looked at me and said, keep working hard. You can do it, but you're a little crazy. you're nuts.
Yeah.
And, which is fine. When it's all said and done, there's a few people that come up and said, man, we saw how you were working and we're thinking you're a little nuts, but if anybody can do it, you can do it. So, I had all that. I had the lies that I couldn't believe, but then I had the truth in my life that I had to really focus on that. And that's really what got me through then and continues to get me through life.
I think I used to be a pastor and have a faith background myself. And I think part of what that gives you is you can go for it. And even if you don't get it, it's okay. Because this is what I want, but it's not everything, and that's the best. The most successful people have a way of still going for it and having that ambition, but knowing it's okay. I'll be all right.
You're right. And the thing I tell people, I think some people, if April 29th, 1980, if I wouldn't have gotten a call by the Bengals or wouldn't have had a chance, I truly believe if I had to go another direction, I would have been successful. Because of the lessons I learned about myself, about other people, and what I learned, as we shared growing up, my mentors. I mean, I had the confidence that if it meant, now being my 40th year coaching high school or, 35th year teaching or being this, I really, but you're right. It was like, I really wanted to do this, play football, but if it didn't, I was okay because of the support group, my faith, and the work ethic that I learned.
Yeah. Awesome, man. We got a few minutes left. I want to make sure we talk a little bit about the foundation and what you're doing now. Yeah. And, but to get there, I would so I've had like 3 different careers in my life, but every time I thought it was the thing I was going to do forever each time. You know what I mean?
Right.
One of the interesting things to me about professional athletes is even if you believed on draft day, you were going to be a Hall of Famer and have a 13-year career, that's not very long. Did you think about that, or were you just so focused it didn't matter? But did it come into your mind like, I obviously can't do this forever, so what am I going to do after this?
Well, I think I had a perspective of this game could be taken one play, as it was for 3 years in college. I'm moving right along. Boom, I get hurt. Season's over. Moving, boom. So I had that perspective. I knew that was but in preparing for each year, I busted it, but I started to kind of look at other things. My 4th year in the league, I went to real estate school, got my real estate license, and teamed up with 2 other guys, and we started a building company. So I tried to really, my last 7 years of playing in the NFL, I did high school football on radio Friday nights. And you know how big high school football is here. So it was actually during the strike year, I went to cut a spot at a local radio station. The guy was doing high school football games. He said, hey, you're not doing anything this weekend. Come do some football with me. I said, all right, let me call you back. So it started, and all of a sudden, 7 years after, I'm doing high school football on radio, and I loved it. So what happens after I retire? I can either go into coaching, but I went into broadcasting. So I did that for 7 years after I retired. So you're right. 13 years, 15 years, you're still a young guy. I mean, now they're talking about these kids coming out of college early at 21. And well, we were all 21 when we got to the NFL because, I graduated high school at 17, 4 years of college. So, 13, 14 years, you're 34, 35. But I started to think about that and really wanted to make sure that, that I had something else to do after I retired. I wasn't a golfer, so I wasn't playing golf. And eventually I did end up playing golf. But so I've had a lot of great opportunities, especially now with, the foundation, a couple of small companies. I think that during the playing days, not only what I learned as a player, but what I learned in, going back to school and being a little bit in the business community, because you look at it, and I tell a lot of people, 21 years old, I get here, retired 35, 14 years. My classmates at USC, 14 years of business. So they got a little bit of a jump on us, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden we retired 35 and we're thinking, okay, what do we do? I position myself with mentors, business people that I could, pick their brains and really learn from, just like I did for 21 years as an offensive lineman. I had a coach who taught me technique. So now, non-for-profit business, I wanted a coach to teach me. And that's what's been fun for me the last, 30 years, or 20, 30 years that I've been retired, is the things I've learned outside of the game.
Yeah. This has been so great, man. I always end with two questions. The first one, it's kind of serious. And the second one, I try to make it fun. We'll see if it works. Yeah. But for the serious one, like I know your faith's very important to you. I know that kids growing up in a way where they have coaching is important to you. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about why you're doing the foundation, what it's about, and if there's any help you need or anything people can do that listen to this.
Yeah, so the foundation started 8 years after I retired, which people are like, really? I said, yeah. So when I was playing, being an NFL football player, a husband, a father, and then to do a foundation, I don't think I could have totally engaged with the foundation. So I helped a lot of groups, as many as I could. I made myself available. After I retired, I had 2 kids. They were going through high school, and then they went on to college, to school and play sports. So when they're like sophomores, juniors in college, I knew they'd soon graduate. For 8 years, I'm putting this plan together, and had some CEOs come to me constantly saying, let's do something. So I always wanted to give back. And when I first thought about it, I saw all these great groups and all the great work. I had these programs I want to do, and it was all about giving back. I had a chance to really experience a great, career and blessed. And so I wanted to give back. So, but the more I think about it, not only did I want to give back, use the platform to, help young people like I was helped. We talked about it. I mean, we never had a car. We had to walk. We had to, get rides from other people, maybe one pair of shoes a year. I mean, we were not that well off, but coaches, teachers, organizations stepped in and allowed me to get a new baseball glove, some new baseball cleats. And that's what I wanted to do, when I started the foundation, is just wanted to help out young people. And so pay it forward, but then it ends up being, you're honoring those that helped you. I look at it as a way of honoring my mom, Jim, coaches, teachers, and those people that poured into my life, and saying that, man, we poured into his life and hopefully we made a difference. And now he gets it. He wants to do the same thing. So, I've been fortunate to establish an amazing team. And I look at the community as being part of the team, my staff, volunteers, my board. So it's just, I was on a much smaller team with the Bengals. Now I'm on a really big team here in the greater Cincinnati area. And I love it. And that's why I started the foundation, is that I saw there was very talented young men and women, and all they needed was maybe, some confidence, maybe assistance in going to college, or maybe teaching them a little bit about character that's going to make them stand up and say, yeah, I can be a leader. I can do the right thing. And so that's why we do what we do.
I love it, man. It's obvious that was in you the whole time, and that God has allowed you to do that is I'm
awesome. Thankful, very thankful for that.
All right. Here's my one question. I think what I've landed on is this. You can go back in time, but you can't change anything.
Right.
You get to relive just one play of your whole career in real time and experience it again, what's the one play you would want to relive?
The one play that I want to relive is that in Super Bowl 23, the 49ers have a 3rd and 16, and they either make the first down or they don't. We take over and we win the game. Is that Joe Montana throws an incomplete pass to Jerry Rice, and we end up with one Super Bowl ring because we beat him. That's probably one of the few things I would change. Is that
you totally broke the rules by changing it, but as a Bengals fan,
I know I had to change it.
I will take it too. I'm glad that our city has a ring now because we redid that play. I was a little kid, but man, that was killer.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you so much, man. This has been so great. You're a good person and a leader here in our city. It's an honor to share the city with you and to see all the great things you do. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed it and appreciate what you all do and look forward to talking again and working together again. So
yeah. Okay, Anthony. We'll see you around. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.